So there are lots of problems that can occur in recirculating deep water culture or any really hydroponic system. What are some of those common problems that growers may encounter when either setting up or growing in an RDWC system?
So when it comes to setting up a system, one of the biggest concerns is making sure you have a circulation pump for the right size. Something that's too big will actually result in you just overflowing naturally. So it's always good to test that out. Make sure your water level is even throughout on all the buckets. Also, the other most important thing is your air pump. So you want to make sure you have a big enough air pump that's putting out enough air so that your root zones don't suffocate. And once you have those two things down, pretty much you're good to go.
Awesome. There's a couple problems that I'm aware of that I figured I'd fire off and see if you had any solutions to it. One of them would be the struggle to have different cultivars in the same system. You've got one nutrient mix that's being fed to all different plants, and generally speaking, different cultivars are going to uptake nutrients differently. Do you come across problems where it's like some plants are deficient while some plants are toxic or anything like that?
Yeah, actually, that's pretty common. I really try to run the same strain throughout the entire system if I can. I know that gets a little bit boring sometimes, but I have had instances where I have one strain that's just completely toxic. It's getting way too much, but if I have five other ones that are doing well, then I'm going to worry about those um, more than just the one that is off. So I try to favor the masses, I guess, to make up for that. But really, there's not much you can do. That's one of the downsides of sharing, the same solution for all plants. You're gonna have to run the same strain.
Got it. And you mentioned same strain. Are you going to the point where it's like same strain as in same cut, or same strain as in like it can be from seed, just the same strain?
Yeah, no, from seed, just the same strain. Definitely, it doesn't have to be the cut. I mean, even the phenos are gonna differ a little bit, but it's not like big enough to where you're gonna like notice a huge one's gonna be deficient where the other one isn't. You really won't have that problem.
Okay. Another problem that is pretty common, and we already kind of touched upon it, which is maintaining the water temp, keeping that water temp lower. Now, chiller was one solution, right? But there are some hacks out there, right, that you could do. Like I know some people do the frozen water bottles in order to kind of lower the temp in the reservoir in the system. Is there any other hacks like that to lower the water temp that you know of?
The I guess the only thing that you can do that's going to really control it is keeping your room temperatures down. So if you control your room to 75 degrees, the water is going to be 73 to 77. And if you go down even lower, say 70 degrees, you're going to be pretty close to that ideal range. Um, the one thing I would say about adding the ice things to the buckets is just be careful that if that is a plant, if that's a plant bucket and the ice is actually touching the roots, that can be a little bit dangerous. So you can do that in like your control res, but I wouldn't add ice to like anything that has a root zone in it.
That makes sense. Another problem that actually may not be a big problem is algae. So algae can kind of show up, particularly on you might have seen it on the clay pebbles. I know rock wool. It can show up. People who do only rock wool grows have algae on them oftentimes. Actually, on a side note, I need to get somebody on the podcast who grows in rock wool. If anybody has any suggestions, put it down in the comment section below here. But algae, do you worry about that at all? If so, like, what do you do about it?
Actually, I don't. So in the system, you're not going to really have much algae because you have the beneficial bacteria in there. It's not going to really be growing on the inside of the bucket. The one place you may get it is on top of that rock wool, and that would really only happen is if you're top feeding and then it's staying damp on there for a little bit too long. But after those first couple of weeks, you really aren't top feeding anyway, so there's not much water getting up on top or even on that hydron at all. So you're really not going to have much of an algae problem, or at least you shouldn't.
Another common problem that people face, particularly when they're building their own systems, is leaks, right? So, do you have any kind of best practices for how to handle leaks? I mean, do you recommend that folks put together the system and then kind of check for leaks initially, or do they check for leaks frequently, or how do you go about leaks?
So That's why I actually mentioned that thing about the current culture bulkheads, because that's going to give you the best chance of not running into a leak. So it's worth spending a little bit extra on those. But yeah, I would definitely say once you have the system built, fill it up with water. Make sure that the pumps are running evenly. Make sure you're not going to overflow, and most importantly, make sure that you are not leaking. Because if you start growing and you run a leak, it's going to be really, really hard to like plug it or fill it from the outside while there's water in the system. So you can do stuff like that, but you're going to have to empty everything out, try to fix it, and then you're kind of just crossing your fingers. So it's best to make sure that the system is solid, everything is perfect before you put plants in it. I wouldn't rush that part at all because there is a lot of water that is potentially can spill. So
This clip is brought to you by AC Infinity. Use discount code MrGrow at 15 to save on any of their products.